Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's good and great and wonderful. Everything is good here, but I'm just kind of having a day. Work was tough today. I have a couple of issues that I've been chasing for a few days now, and I'm still not confident that I understand what's going on. But, thankfully, I think I have a resolution lined up for that, and I'll be able to solve it in the morning if all goes well. And I'm not going to get to go to game night tonight, so I don't, yeah, it just is what it is. But that's fine. It's okay. And I have a bit of a headache. And so the problem is I have a bit of a headache. Work was a drag, and as a creative person, my creative endeavors are constantly invading my thoughts. They're running in the background all day long, and it makes it very, very difficult to focus on something else. And I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's ADD. I don't know if that's how creative people the world over work. And honestly, I hesitate to call myself a creative person because I know that people look at the things that I've created, and they look at my art, and they look at my craft, and they go, wow, that's really remarkable. But when I look at it, I know that, especially when it comes to game design, that my game designs are not traditionally good. And what I mean by that is, I tend to find some little thing, some mechanic, some tweak, some little thing that I think is interesting, but I haven't, done a market study. I haven't taken, game theory courses, and I don't know. I just go by gut feel, right? What feels right to me. And I take a mechanism or an idea that I have, and I try to massage it into something. And what often ends up happening, and I don't know why I just said often, very weird. What often ends up happening is the games that come out of my brain and make it onto the table are just, something isn't quite right. They don't feel quite right. When you play a game from a well-respected designer, often, I said it again, why am I saying it weird? Often, the game flows because the mechanics are tied so well to the theme of the game or to each other, meaning that you almost intuitively know that by doing something you're going to get a bonus or you're going to do a thing. But my game designs often have these little tweaks that are just not quite right. And they don't feel, and I have to explain things and people go, what? Why is it like that? And I just go, because that's the way I designed it, right? And that's not really a good answer. In most of my games that I've ever designed have arbitrary restrictions because I find restrictions to be fun. I find restrictions to be interesting decisions. If I'm restricted by the number of cards I can hold in my hand, or the number of cubes that I have, or the number of resources I can gain a turn, I find that an interesting decision. But most people don't. Most people want to get their resources and then want to get things and then have the purchasing of things or the activation of things be the limiting factor, not just some arbitrary number. I enjoy the arbitrary number thing. And I enjoy having, I enjoy it when a game gives me this huge array of things that I can do, but I'm restricted because I have a limited resource pool. And so I have to pick what I can afford this turn, or I have to save up for a couple turns. I enjoy that as opposed to the opposite of having resources and looking for a way to spend them and not having ways to spend them. So my game's always a little bit weird. And the train game has been... Am and I have been playing. I've been playing. I think that the core loop is great. I think it's a really fun turn structure. I think that the rounds the game is the correct length. It's 3 rounds. It's share certificates determine when the game runs out. But there's still these little things, and it's like, why do I have to pay money for this? I don't know, because I thought that would be a fun decision. I thought it would be interesting so that you couldn't just go wherever the hell you wanted. You'd have to kind of pay some, and that's victory points you're throwing away. So do you want to do that? Why do I gain money for this? Again, because I thought that would be interesting. I thought it would be an interesting decision. And the reality of it all is usually those things that I find interesting, that I say, oh, that's an interesting decision, is like in a 300-point game, it's a 1-point difference. So that 1 point is not a deciding factor. It has really very little impact on the game. But in my head, when I'm designing it, I go, oh, that'd be a fun decision. And so I just pluck it in. And I make it, I don't make it worth too much. So what I've had to do with the train game is strip out some of that. I stripped out some of the little arbitrary rules. I stripped out some of the weird payout structure. I think I figured out how to make the commodities market work much, much better for players who don't quite comprehend what's happening. So I think that overall I have a much better product, but it in some ways, in my head at least, has less decisions because there's a few little things that are less interesting. But again, in a 300-400 point game, it's going to come down to like a 10-point difference. So is it really worth having all of that extra weight, that extra explanation, that extra misunderstanding for 10 points? No. I'll just strip it out and we'll play the game and hopefully it works. So that's what I've done, and that kind of thing is what's in the back of my head all day long while I'm working. I'm trying to work on databases. Today's work was mostly database related. I'm just in a database. I use command line, so I'm just typing commands away. And while this is all happening, my brain is turning over this stupid train game in my head and not letting me really concentrate on what I'm doing. And so oftentimes I stumble. I'll just have to take a break. I'll take a break for 10 minutes. I'll get something to drink. I'll make a coffee. I'll watch a YouTube video, or, the trap is I'll work on the game. But I try to really not do that unless it's lunchtime, because if I go to work on the game, I'll end up forgetting that the rest of the world exists for a half an hour, and then the next thing you know, nothing's getting done. So I don't work on the game during work because that's a trap, right? That's a huge trap, and I try to focus on what I'm doing. But man, it's really hard. And like I said, I'm curious, is that a creative thing? Is that something that is it just the excitement of it? Is it because I'm excited about the game that I'm stuck into it? I don't know. I don't really know. But that's been a part of me my whole life. I've always been obsessive about things, and when I start to obsess on something, it just stays with me, and it stays with me, and it just screws itself deep, deep into my thoughts and doesn't let go. And it can be a good thing, especially when I'm creating something that I think will be a successful product at some point in the future. So we shall see. Hopefully I'll be able to share it with you soon, and we'll be able to play it together in some way, shape, or form. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart, the first word in the H's, habeas corpus. It's a noun meaning a written order requiring a prisoner or person under arrest or confinement to be brought before a judge to assess whether the restraint of said person is lawful and proper. Following the nightclub brawl, Chad and Wendo managed to receive a writ of habeas corpus only after their father called the authorities and reminded them of his social contacts. Habeas corpus. Habeas space corpus. I think I said habeas corpus in the beginning there, and that's... Why am I saying things weirdly tonight?